Hi everybody, my name is Grace Smith with the Wise News Network, and today we are here at the African American History Museum at Loray Mills in Gastonia, North Carolina. Did you know that on Monday, April 15th, 2024, it is Jackie Robinson Day? Jackie Robinson was an influential African American baseball player. In a second, we will hear from a few more very influential African American athletes who grew up in Jim Crow era in the South. We will hear from Frank McClure and Bob Johnson, who respectively played baseball and football. Stay tuned. All right, thank you guys so much for being here today. Let's get started. Can you please tell me a little bit about your age and what you are currently doing with your time? Either one of you can start.
My name is Frank McClure. My age is 79 years old. I was born in York County, South Carolina in 1944. And I'm the son of Paul and Kenise McClure. I had 14 siblings, brothers and sisters. And I graduated from high school in Roosevelt High School and 2 years of college at 2 semesters of college at Gaston College. And I am now a teacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what I love doing at this time. So it's been a very rewarding life so far.
My name is Bob Johnson. I was born in Oak Ridge Community, which is a part of Clover, South Carolina, October 7th, 1948. I'm 75 years old as of this day. I've enjoyed my growing up in Oak Ridge Community. I attended Roosevelt High School in Clover, South Carolina. I went there for 10 years. After the 10th year, I ended up going to Reed High School in Belmont, North Carolina, where I graduated and got a full scholarship to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina. I met my wife there as a freshman. Her name is Jacqueline Shade. We've been married for 52 years. I have 2 daughters, Rhoda Johnson Hicks and Robin Renee Johnson. Have 2 grandchildren, Riley Hicks, who attends Stuart Kramer in Cramerton, North Carolina. My granddaughter, Robbie Hicks, who attends Belmont Elementary School in Belmont, North Carolina. And we come out of a good Christian family that always give us orientation at the kitchen table. Let's say a Bible verse, let's go around the table before we eat. We'll always bless the food. Yeah. And I've been blessing my food ever since I was big enough to bless food. And I continue, whether I'm at the Reed Hodgency House or the Rich Carlton, I'm still to be the same Bob Johnson.
I like to hear that. It seems like faith was an important part, or is an important part, of both of y'all's lives. How did that start?
Faith started with our family. As Bob was saying, our parents, they always taught us, as he said, around the kitchen table to say a Bible verse. And my mom and dad, my dad, he was born at the turn of the century, and he had a lot of hardships and things, and he knew that he could depend on nothing else but the Lord. So he depended on the Lord, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And with all the children that we had, he began to tell us about the Lord. And we began, as we got older, to study the Word of God, and our faith grew at that time. Thank God for the ministers that we had in the area at the time. They helped to guide us along the way. So we're so thankful for that. That's how my faith started, as Bob was saying. Parents always was a pretty big part in it.
Faith and family.
Faith and family.
2 very important values.
Yes.
How did your faith and your family support you during your athletic careers and inspire you to go ahead and pursue athletics when not very many African American men were pursuing sports?
In my family, my father was a farmer. He wanted me to stay on the farm. At one time, he didn't want me to really go to school because he needed help. And I had a first cousin who said, let him go, get some education, and he can help you better. And I think his name was Amos Williams. Amos is deceased. He was a baseball player too. So I followed the rule of getting education. And I wanted to make good grades. So I had to farm and study. But the problem I was having, we had books that was passed down from the white schools. And a lot of the books had been marked out, or pages that you couldn't communicate. You couldn't learn the whole story. So my dad, who was finished the 6th grade, he said, son, Get with some kids at school, and you guys make your book and get those pages put together, and then you'll pass your test. See, we didn't have enough information. And so he wanted us to pass. So by doing that, that gave me the opportunity when I left Roosevelt to go to Reed High School. The first year I was at Reed High School, I became Student of the Year because of education level. Also at Reed High, I had two friends, Parks Adams and Charles Stowe, and I got a full scholarship. And the coach, Eddie McGirt, said, Bob, if you come to Johnson C. Smith, I will give your two friends full scholarships. And they were gonna go to North Carolina Central, they were gonna go to Livingston College, Winston-Salem State. We all attended Johnson C. Smith. I majored in business administration, and the key of that, getting the education properly, football players had to go to chapel. If you didn't go to chapel, you didn't play on Saturday. If the only reason we couldn't go to chapel, we was out of town. But if you was in Charlotte, North Carolina, we had to sign in that we were going to chapel. So the coaches got that report. So it influenced me and enhanced me to be greater in my studies. So I ended up getting a degree in business administration and marketing. So when I was drafted by the Cowboys, I could go either way, whether I made the team or didn't make the team. So when I got cut from Dallas, Coach Landry liked me well enough because he looked at my resume. He had a friend in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He called the vice president, the president of Lincoln Financial. And I was the first black man out of Charlotte to work for a white industry at that time, in 1971. And it was an opportunity that came to me just because the grace of God, being in the presence of my family.
It seems like academics and athletics have something in common, which is a work ethic.
It's a work ethic.
And did your faith and did your family, your community help you foster this work ethic and inspire you to keep going?
Yes. And our instructors, and pretty much I come to at the time, we had all black instructors. And they were very authentic in preparing us. A lot of our instructors was in church with us. So we had to be obedient. We had to respect of everybody. Even the winos on the street would tell you, son, don't do that. You better go to class. See, Will Green, I mean, back in Clover. Will Green was an inspiration to me. Mm. And he said, don't do that, son. Mr. Bowell, who was the janitorial guy, he was just like a principal. Mm-hmm. I dropped a piece of paper on the ground. I won't never forget dropping that piece of paper. I had to pick up the whole campus of paper by myself, and all the class was laughing, looking out the window laughing at me picking up paper. But Mr. Bowell had authority just like Mr. Hightower. Dot and Frank know this. It made us strong men. So I look at good character, influence, and make sure I'm in the right group of people. But I help everybody. Help everybody. Yeah.
So everybody really in your community was looking out for you. Why do you think there was such a strong feeling that you had to have each other's backs?
Well, the parents in the community, they were just like our parents. Mm-hmm. If we would do something that we shouldn't do, they would give us a spanking or whooping and send us home, and we'd get the same thing. And unfortunately, I wasn't afforded to be able to go to college when I got out of high school, so many of my siblings, but I do remember coming up in the Jim Crow area, the things that I went through. My dad, he inspired me to play baseball, and some of the things that I saw coming up in the Jim Crow area made me want to continue to play baseball. I worked at a restaurant there in Clover, South Carolina. Was at that time, I don't know if I need to call a name or not, but everybody knew what it was, and I used to, what we call hop and curb and waited on cars, and the man would allow us to have a job. I was 15 years old, and he used to bring us to work and take us home, and he was a white gentleman. I came home one night, and we did have electric lights. A lot of people didn't have them, but I saw a light at our home. When I got home, there was a cross burning our yard. The Ku Klux Klans had burned a cross in the yard, and we didn't know exactly what that was for. And so my dad and my family everybody was kind of upset about that. And once I got home, I couldn't understand it. And I asked the man that brought me home. It was a white gentleman. I said, why did they do that? He said, well, that wasn't meant for you all. I said, wait a minute, how did you know it was going to be there? I was saying to myself. And said to him, because we couldn't do that in those days. And so, and when our home burned down, we had 2 siblings that burned to death in there. That caused me to persevere and inspired me to play ball, get my mind off of different things of that nature. And once I graduated from high school, went to Brooklyn, New York, and saw some semi-pro teams playing ball, and came back and began my career with one of the legendary men here, this Elmo Hill's dad, and a semi-pro team. But I was afforded to go to college at 67 years old. I got a couple semesters in. I was so thankful for that. Mm-hmm. And I was inspired by a lot of people in our community and our the neighbors. And one of the main teachers, I think Bob made reference to him a few moments ago, Mr. Alexander Davis. He was a giant of a teacher and a man. Even Mr. Calhoun and the rest of them. And we had a principal. He was strict, but I'm glad that he was, because it made me stay focused on what I was supposed to be focused on. So, and coming in the community with faith, our parents having faith and being what we call religious people, spiritual people, we just thank God that that's where we were, and that brought us this far where we are today.
How old were you when you started playing baseball? Well,
I started really at about 14 years old, playing out in the yard. And we had a baseball diamond in the church called Bowling Green, South Carolina. And I played with some of the men, just as Bob said, he played with us he was 14 and we was about 18. And they were grown men. They was good baseball players. That's why I learned a lot of fundamentals of baseball on that red dirt diamond. And after that, I went to high school, went out for the high school team, and there's a lot of guys on the team older than I was. And in the 10th grade, at 16 years old, I made the varsity team in baseball. And when I did that, I played all that time, and that's after I graduated from high school. Then went on to New York and played some more. Came back and played some semi-pro ball, and in all over the Carolinas, we played baseball. So it was really rewarding for me and get my mind off a lot of things. And my parents, they really, really persevered. They focused on us, and they fostered us through the hard times. And we didn't have the things that other kids have, but they was really, really loving parents. So I thank God for that. That's where we were, and that's how we made it through our faith.
Did you ever encounter interactions with people who didn't want you to play sports?
Well, not me. Bob may have. When we was coming up, most of it was black teams. We had black baseball teams and basketball teams, and we didn't intermingle with the white teams or whatnot. But we had a lot of disgruntlement because we was on one side of the town and Caucasians on the other side of town. And during the summertime, we could not go to the swimming pools. And a fan wrote a letter in this book. I don't have time to read it, but the fan said that they were so grateful that we did have baseball on our side of town where they could have some entertainment, something to look at, because we wasn't allowed to get in the swimming pool, wasn't allowed to go in the gymnasium, or none of those things. So I didn't have any reaction with the white players being rejected from the team, but I was rejected from the whole community of white, not just only the team at that time. So I didn't have a personal, rejection from any of the Caucasians.
How about you, Mr. Johnson?
My situation was a little bit different from Frank. It was 2 young men in Clover, white guys. Buzzy Stokes, his father was a pharmacist, and they had a farm. And I had never played with white boys. And Buzzy's father had a big farm lot that we could go down there. There was only 3 of us out there, back in the woods, but an open space. So I trained with Buzzy and Mo. Buzzy was going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I was going to the Cowboys. So had it not been for Buzzy Stokes, I would have never interacted with a white guy in sports until I got to the Cowboys. So I was in predominantly pro-black coming up. But even in the black community in Oak Ridge, I had to train by myself because it wasn't nobody headed to college. Mm-hmm. And so they said I had a mental breakdown because I run all the time. But I had to run because I knew what I was going to be faced with. Being in shape, being prepared, to graduate from college. So it paid a dividend by interacting with some white guys whose father was very educated and not prejudiced toward me. And he treated me like I was his son. So when I got where I was, the guys that came out of like Purdue and University of Illinois, where you had mostly white, Notre Dame, then my first encounter was when I got to Dallas to meet these guys. But these guys treated me like I was the king also because of how they grew up and their coaches. When I got to Dallas, they brought a coach in from North Carolina A&T named Hornsby Howell. And Hornsby coached against me when I was in college. Hornsby gave me an orientation. He said, Bob, it's gonna be difficult here. You're in Dallas, Texas. You got a Super Bowl team. You got Roger Staubach, Bob Lilly, these type guys, Bobby Hayes, and you might not make the team. He was just point blank with me. He said, well, look at your record. You got a degree. If you don't, you're gonna still win, but you're gonna have a great opportunity. So I ended up giving back, and it caused me to end up meeting later years. A couple years ago, I met Dabo Sweeney at Clemson. And Dabo said, what do you do? I said, I'm a financial planner. He said, I want you to talk to my players about financial literacy. So look how that door opened by me being disciplined enough that I could work with the white community and the black community. Now I did attend Belmont Abbey College during the summer. So I had a Catholic priest, Father Martin, who taught, and his final exam was on the board. He had 5 students in that summer class. So I took my final exam on the board. You couldn't cheat, so you had to know what you were doing. I passed everything that he put on the board for me in accounting. So I thank God for white people. I thank God for black people, and that we unite because all our blood is red. And also, I became a deacon when I was 21 years old at Pleasant Grove Missionary Baptist Church in Clover area. Then I moved to a church in Charlotte, which is Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. And I was going there, I was just gonna sit back, just relax, and not get involved in any, just be a regular member. I get picked out again and became a deacon at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in 2008. And God's still working me right now. And I meet with mayors, doctors, lawyers, and the reason why education is so important to young people, I got to be able to deal with that kid who's 4 years old, that know computer better than I, but I don't embarrass myself because I had to get into technology myself. And I had lied to myself. I said I would not do that, but I had to change my way of thinking, had to renew my mind. So now I'm pretty much computer where I can move forward, but young and old. And I thank God for all of that. I thank God for my educators. Then in the white community, I was in class with all white boys when I was working for Lincoln Financial. And they had never experienced being with a black man. But one thing Coach Landry taught me, he said, when you leave Dallas, you dress right, you talk right, and you act right, and you will succeed. And I carry that everywhere I go. Guys like Dan Reed, who used to coach the Atlanta Falcons, was my mentor at Dallas. Bob Lilly, those guys. They were educated men, Calvin Hill. And a lot of people know Calvin by Grant Hill, who went to Duke. So and in my work, I got to work at Duke University, Carolina, Clemson, because of my education in insurance.
You got to see a lot of different experiences and experience a lot of different things. Do you think that athletics and sports is something that can unite the black community and the white community and just everybody?
In my experience in semi-pro baseball, it can unite. One of the reporters at the Rocky Hurl interviewed our historian of our baseball team, and he reminded him that I was inspirational in integrating our baseball team. I think our baseball team was the first team in York County to be integrated. And we recruited several white players, which was dynamic players. We didn't look at the color of the skin. We looked at the skills and athletic ability that they had. One of them was Terry Thomas, which was a great, great baseball player. And we had the opportunity to play in the Boston Red Sox farm club in Ernest Field in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but they had a lot of baseball fans know what the Green Monster is, a big wall. You can't hit the ball over it, but this guy hit the ball over the wall and everywhere else we went. And he was really, really gifted. And not only him, Rick and Tommy and Terry and all of those guys and integrated our team. We have a picture with one of the guys on the team now I put on display on Monday night. But the integration, I was so happy that I was one of the ones to help to get that done. Even though I wasn't like Bob. I didn't come up in high school with the white guys, but I didn't look at the color of the skin. I looked at the heart of a person. And this is why we're so successful in what our team winning the championship in 1973. And I know you may ask the time that one of the things that we've done in our lives, I was so happy to go to an all-star game batting 400 myself. And Jackie Robinson, he finished his career with 313, 171 home runs. Jackie Robinson had 2 years of stolen bases, and Jackie Robinson played in 6 All-Star games. He also was the most valuable player in 1949 and 1947. He's the Rookie of the Year. And those things inspired me to continue to play baseball, and as he's playing with the white players, and play with good ball players. And the Brooklyn Dodgers, of course, you know, I won't go over the names of the one. So that inspired me to get another white guy to play with. Come on, play with us. You're a good ball player. And he was really dynamic on that. So that's the experience that I had with that, and had no other problems with that. And he and I were in contact all the time. He's 66 years old now, 66, 67 years old. He too told me that I was his role model. And so that made me feel so proud. Mm-hmm. After our career ended in baseball, we began to go bowling, and he bowled, good bowl, great ball. He was all around athlete. So I say that to say this: it doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you got it, you got it. Mm-hmm. So that's just the way it was. And again, my parents, as Bob said a moment ago, with our faith, I always told me, say, if you want something you never had, you've got to do something you've never done. Mm-hmm. So that was my philosophy, to do that in life, and to get to go. And I will relate just a little bit to Bob when he's talking about the tore up books that he got when he's in school. I was tore up worse than that. Really? He was 4 years younger than me, but we persevered through that. Mr. County, he was superintendent at the time, and he worked along with Mr. Hightower for us to get good books in our high school. I know I'm going back to that. You asked that question a few moments ago, but that's a part of coming up at that time. I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand why that was happening at the time. But as life went on, we understood that, and trying not to have no animosity against anybody, loving people. And getting back to what you asked Bob a moment ago about faith, that's where our faith came in at. Biblically, you gotta love everybody. That's the only way to do it.
So when you were in your baseball career and in just your athletic careers in general, growing up in Jim Crow era, North Carolina, South Carolina, the South, was there ever a sense of culture shock when you traveled?
Well, I was blown away. As I stated a moment ago, I didn't play with the white guys here, and in the Carolinas, but when I went to Brooklyn, New York, it was totally different. I could go in the front door, I could eat at counters, different counters, and the people were so nice there. And during that time in 1958, from 1958 to 1959 to 1962, we couldn't get work in York County. We couldn't go in the mill. We couldn't even go toward white people in the mill, to be honest with you. So we would rent an old car, a guy named Willis Pettis, my brother and all, we'd get in the car and drive to New York. And there was plenty of jobs, and they welcomed us with open arms. And I couldn't understand why they were so nice to us, and sometimes the white people wasn't. I remember the cross that were burning in our yard. We didn't do anything. Why did you do that? Why would you burn the cross? Maybe because what happened on Tom Joy Road now, which was a Route 1, Box 147, our home burned down. All of the neighbors, Mr. Ellifield, the Little Johns, and the Wrights gathered together, and we got money and built another house. It wasn't a beautiful house. And somebody had said, I have to say this, and I researched and I tried to find it, say, well, they use the N-word, they don't deserve a new home. So when a house like that. So when I went to New York and saw the culture there, the difference between in York County and the city of New York, that was a shocker to me. And there's some other places I did go that there was kind of a different culture in traveling, because a lot of times when we traveled and we played baseball, we had to raise our own money by selling hot dogs and fish sandwiches and drinks and things of that nature just to buy baseballs and to play, because we love to play the sport. And I thank God that we got it done. And like I said, when I came back from New York and met Mr. Elmo's dad, it was a different situation. He was really, really a nice man and helped us with a lot of things, different things. I could go on and on, but I'll just hold up with that.
No, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And then how about for you, Bob? Did you experience some culture shock in your travels?
Yes, I did. Johnson C. Smith had to play a team out of Tuskegee, Alabama, Tuskegee Institute. I had never seen cross burn. But what saved our team and helped us more, we had a white bus driver. The only white guy on the team, he drove the bus. And he would talk to us in a way. He said, you're gonna see some difficult cities that you never experienced going south. And we did see that. He said, just stay calm, keep your mouth shut, and let us get through. So being given an orientation from a white guy driving the bus helped the whole team to so on down the highway. But I had never seen that before. But Frank had seen it in his home. And I saw it abroad. And another culture shock was we had a white boy named Louis Jewell, who went to school at Myers Park. And Louis was the only white guy I had ever played with at Johnson C. Smith. Louis was a punter. So we played Marsh Brown in Atlanta. In the reverse of Jewell and myself, we were roommates. But Jewell had never seen that many black people in one place. So Jewell got kind of frightened, and I calmed Jewell down, but Jewell still wasn't calmed down, really. So Jewell called his dad and said, Dad, after this game, get me a ticket so I can fly back to Charlotte. So he flew back out because he couldn't make the adjustment. I didn't have the words to help him, but Jewell was probably in the safest place he could be with us, all black men at that time, because we had a good relationship. And back then, you would hear black men use the N-word, because that was like a figure of speech. You know, you're a bad so-so, you're a good ball player, you're a bad ball player. But all that bad meant good. So it's how we interpret it. And so we were coached along with our coaches where, let's don't let words mess you up. You here to perform, you're an actor on that football field, you're an actor. And being an actor, you've got to block all that stuff out and become a winner. We became winners because we were good men that came off the farm. Pork wooders, farmers, tobacco raisers, from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Sumter, South Carolina, to Birmingham, Alabama, all black men come together. Mm-hmm. And we would have been, at this time, I'd have been a Duke University guy. I'd have been a Clemson guy, but the time didn't permit that. Piggybacking to Belmont, you can only go to the park one day a week. That was on a Tuesday, from 10 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And I like Belmont because Belmont was the only little city where all the surrounding cities come to Belmont, all black people were in Belmont on Tuesday. Right. So I met their wives there, they met good ball players there, and we danced and we danced. Yeah, it was good. And we had so much fun. That, yeah. But if you would go in Belmont on the Wednesday of the park, you would get locked up. That's right. Or get beat up. Yeah. See? So that's the challenge we had to go through. Mm-hmm. Some of the guys who had to walk through the white communities had to run because the white boys would throw rocks. And you know, you're already tired from practice. So if you know about Belmont, you had to come from one side, you know, to the other side of town. But that stopped. That got stopped because there was some good white people in Belmont said, we're not gonna have this. So that was a culture shock.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Were there ever any times where you felt like your life could be in danger when you were coming up in the athletic industry?
We had a couple of baseball games. After the game, as young men, we wanted to go out. There was a place in York County, South Carolina called Jay's Truck Stop. And after the game, we said, we're gonna ride down to Jay's Truck Stop and then go in. And we were young men at the time. We went in the front door. We weren't supposed to do that, but yet we went in there, and this man had a double barrel shotgun, pull on and say, calls the N-word, if you make one move, I'm gonna blow you away. You know, and you should be in the back. And that happened several times with me, because it came up a little bit earlier than Bob did on those kind of things. It wasn't, it wasn't that we just was trying to do it. I'm strong, I just do it, but just couldn't understand that. And those kind of things did happen on several different occasions, that we would go places in different towns and have to stay in different places. And I was so glad that Terry was with us when we integrated. We got to get our rooms and things all together. But that was one of the times in my life, several times that happened, but that really stuck with me there. That wasn't far from my hometown at that time.
All right, well, how about you, sir?
In 1972, I met Jesse Owens. I was in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know Jesse, but the white boy said, Bob, do you know Jesse? I said, Jesse who? He said, Jesse Owens. And I went up on my game that day. And so he said, I want you to meet Jesse. Jesse sat me down and said, Jesse come along during the time of Jackie Robinson. So they had communicated together. And Jesse said, Bob, if you're gonna be in a white environment, you got to be really polished. You got to be about 10 times better than that white boy. And Jesse was not lying. So he got me set up where I could see the vision, what he was talking about. He said, when you get an assignment, go do that assignment, stay in your room, and go to class the next morning, wherever you are, and be perfect at what you do. He said, you want to stay in the high 90s in your grade point average. So that was just still in my head. I got to stay up here. So I became $1 million producer for Lincoln Financial. I worked in Alaska, Canada, Los Angeles, La Jolla, California, San Diego, with major people. That I never, coming out of Clover, South Carolina, never had a dream I'd be doing that. And my dad looked at me and said, now son, you got on a suit and tie, you don't even look right. See, because he didn't come up in that time. I was getting ready to check cross over. And we had a white boy at the Belmont named Frank Fitzpatrick. And my dad wanted me to stay in a little small house because he wanted me not to make mistakes with money. And Frank said, Bob, you got to move up and get into a good neighborhood, because if you're gonna be trying to build a clientele, they're gonna look at the way, how you operate. So Frank gave me good advice. Now Frank would take me to his house in Belmont and teach me at night, see? Because he wanted me to get it all. He wanted me to pass everything. And so I thank God for Frank Fitzpatrick doing that for me. And I wasn't even supposed to be in that white community, but we went at night. And then Frank would drive me back to my home. So those are the kind of things we were seesawing back and forth.
Yeah.
I look at things now with my grandson and my granddaughter who's in affluent schools in Gaston County. Now, I was at Stuart Kramer this morning at 6:45 because they're having spring practice football. To be engaged with the coach, but to be engaged with the principal, to let him know I care for all students. So it makes a big difference. So South Point, Ashbrook, I follow all the schools and colleges, HBCUs. I do all of that right now because I had to go through that process. And when a kid say he can't make it, I know he can make it. You got to get rid of some stuff in order to make it. And these kids right here in Gaston County, and I thank God for Miss Guthrie, that she brought us here, that these kids can learn regardless. And if you don't have a father, don't worry about that. You get one major father. He ain't got no grandchildren. So just go on through and persevere. So, and I hope this brings somebody to the light, even instructors. Can you teach that kid? Do you know how to teach that kid? See? It's a different language in the black community than the white community, even now. But can you handle that? See? So that's where we are today. Yeah. The museum can change that because they're trying to get black history out of the whole nation. So God gonna make a change. It could be through Frank and I, Miss Guthrie, and you, by interviewing us today. Because some kids have never heard this before. See?
And we are in a time where there are legislative pushes to remove Black history from American history. What are some maybe unconventional ways that you think Black history can be taught to the youth of America? If our school systems aren't doing it, do you think athletics and arts and culture and even learning about folks who came up in financial industries and insurance industries, like you were the first African-American man to work for Lincoln Insurance, correct?
Yes.
And do you think learning about the people who came before us could be unconventional ways to keep teaching African-American history, even if it's unfortunately getting pushed out by legislative pushes and measures?
I was at Clemson University at a gala last year, and I visited the African American Museum there. What Clemson did, they brought in all celebrities and sent them over to the museum, where you had all races of people, because people want to run where professional athletes are. So it made a major difference to see Black men, white men, Jewish guys, all nationality of people at an African American museum. You could not even get, the museum was overwhelmed with that. And it's going to happen again this year, same location, same African American museum. So I started looking at museums throughout the African American museums throughout the country. And that's going to be the source for all people to keep hope alive for Black history.
And if you can't get to the African American museums or the places that Bob is talking about, family values is what's important. One of the things that you can do as a leader of your family is to have a good character. Let your children see who you are. And if you take care of your character, you won't have to worry about your reputation. So when you show your children that you are an upstanding person, and no, I didn't get to see Roger Staubach. I didn't get to see Hayes and all those people you saw, but I did see some people. Some people are gonna know who I'm talking about. Mr. Ben Wright, Paul McClure, Mr. Wilbur Wright. These was men of integrity and wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing, and that's what we have to have. And this is what I was brought up on. This is why I'm alive today, because of those men. I stood on their shoulders. They wasn't educated men, but God had given them that instinct of wisdom that they could talk to us and tell us what to do. There's things that my daddy told me when I was 16 years old. He said, son, I tell you, it's couple of things you have to watch and you'll make it in this life. I never forgot those things that he told me. There was one time my mother, and during that time, my parents in 1950s and all that, they didn't come like the parents today and just say to our face, I love you, I love you. They didn't use those type words, but they showed it in action. That's what I say, the action you have. The way my mother showed me at one time, how she really didn't say I love you, but she told me that she loved me. I got married at an early age, and my wife and I, she's deceased now, God bless her soul. And we had 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. Now I have 3 grandchildren. He mentioned here, I have 3 great-grandchildren. And my mother, my wife and I was young, you know, and we had a little argument or something. And I was telling her about, well, my wife this, and my wife told me this, say, listen, my mother said, and here's what she told me. She said, listen, Frank, everybody is somebody's child, and you're my child. So she was telling me, that's the way she tell me, I love you, and somebody else loved their child as well. So they showed it that way. Like I said, I didn't get around a lot of people that was a professional athlete. Well, a lot of them, but I had some very strong shoulders to stand on.
Mm-hmm. That's important. Mm-hmm. That's very important. And I know you said you had 14 brothers and sisters. Right. Your parents, they must have been very strong people to bring up 14 kids in, any era, but especially Jim Crow era in the South.
And may I say something about that? I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. Out of those 14 children, 10 of them graduated from high school, 5 of them graduated from college. And out of our family, we have a cardiologist, we have 3 education, doctorate degree in education, and that came from my parents. My dad couldn't read and write. My sisters went to college. Alice May especially, she was one of the stronger ones in education in our family, all of them, she taught my daddy to write his name. He used to make an X. And this is you're asking for history, I'm giving you history. That's what it was. But before he died, he could write his name, and he helped to send my sisters and all of us to school, to college. They came back and helped him in that particular way. So I learned a lot from my dad, my mother and my dad, and other men that were in that community that were good men. They weren't perfect men, but they were good men.
Good men.
And Mr. Calhoun, Mr. Pearson, Mr. Davis, and you know that I say Mr. And I'm gonna say this last thing, maybe. I'm old school. And when old school means Mr. or Mrs., yes, open the door for the young lady, get in and out of the car. That's old school.
That's old school.
So that's why I was brought up.
Mm-hmm. Important values to remember, just like community values, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. And I think it would be good to bring it back up. What are some ways you think that communities can come together to support young people and young athletes, young artists who are passionate and have bright futures ahead of them? Like your community came and supported you. It was a really beautiful image to hear about the ball games in Belmont when everyone would come together and be dancing. So what are some good ways your communities can keep supporting athletes?
Well, let me say this one thing
Go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead. It's one thing about the congregation, the church that I go to. We have a scholarship fund. And our pastor, Dr. Benjamin Hendon, he is really adamant about raising money for young people, going to school, and getting that in the community. And that's one way that we can knit the community together with the funds that we take up for sending kids to school and then helping the needy and things like that. That's the way we knit our community together. And sometimes you've got to have money to do it, even along with the character and whatnot. But that's one thing about our church. We're very strong on that about education and scholarship fund. And I think we're having a program pretty soon to raise money for the scholarship fund. I also believe that we should give to the widows an offering and ones of that nature as well. That helps the community. If you have if you get the community together, if you have a person in your family and there is a single mother, maybe it wasn't her fault that she's single or a widow, and they were raising children, well, you've got to help them so they can help the children to get to where they need to be, to get the scholarship, to get to school. That's why I said the widows and the orphans, we have to do that. That's one way we can come together to make our community stronger in that way. I started the grassroots. Biblical roots is to help the widows, the orphans, and then go from there, Bob.
Mm-hmm. I think coming together, say Gaston County, and as I travel and I see museums where wealthy people donate millions of dollars to museums. Mm-hmm. That needs to be taught to keep the museum, African American museums alive. They donate life insurance, they donate annuities, they donate property, and then it can be converted to cash to keep the museum going. But if it don't get generated into the community, the African American Museum will be overlooked. Now, it'll be white men that will donate monies, and I don't know whether all these plans are in place, but they got to get rid of so much money anyway. So why not live the type of lifestyle here in Gaston County, York County, that the museum can be alive for all people. White boys need to know Black history too. Interracial marriages now. You need to know the different cultures. It's here in the Black Museum, see? Now, Jim Crow didn't permit that. If my dad shared with me and almost had me scared of a white woman growing up because he had to walk, if he walked down the street, he had to cross over. He couldn't walk beside you or close to you. Now that was strange.
Right.
Very strange. You could get castrated, you could get mugged, your family's cross could be burned in your yard just for a lie. See? So we need to know the history of both cultures. So it won't be no all Black no more. It won't be no all white anymore. It won't be no all brown. But the museum needs to be the centerfold piece that all people can come in here and learn, see, and spread it abroad.
And one last thing to piggyback on that, I think that health is really important. And let's go back to Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
I think we need to teach our young people and people alike about heart disease and also about diabetes. And so we can take care of ourselves, how to eat and the right medication to take and keep ourselves in physical shape. Because if we get all the money, all the donations come in, if we're not healthy, it doesn't do us any good. Jackie Robinson died at an early age, at 53 years old, because he had succumbed to heart disease and diabetes. He was just about blind before he passed away. Had some hard things that happened in his family. He died in 1971 and 1972, October the 24th. I was born October the 25th. That's why I can relate to that and remember that with Jackie Robinson. Also, I graduated high school in 1962. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1962. So he died from diabetes and heart disease. So we must try to get the right nutrition and things for our children. No matter how much money we get in the community, how much is donated, if we're not healthy, we can't achieve what we need to.
I think that those are both really important points, with museums being kind of like a heart of a community where you can come in, learn mutual aid, but also it's important to teach about the ways that we can nourish our bodies and also nourish our mind. And I know that Monday is Jackie Robinson Day. Why do you think it's so important that we honor this day and that we talk about this amazing man?
Jackie Robinson, during the time I was growing up, I couldn't see really Jackie that much on TV, or the radio. And you had to vision what was taking place. Frank knows more about it than I do. But you could sit there in that room and hear the game being called by Ned Albright. Like he was there. You had to close your eyes and vision the baseball field. No TV in the house. In my house, it wasn't a TV at that time. But I was like at the game. It was like I was seeing the game. So, with Jackie being the only Black player at that time, we was always rooting for the Dodgers. Then Willie Mays to come along, Hank Aaron come along, Roberto Clemente come along, see, and they all was mimicking Jackie Robinson. So Jackie played the leading role. And I look at myself today, I'm gonna use a guy named Donnell Wolford who attended Clemson. Donnell's from Fayetteville, North Carolina, all pro. Donnell had more leisure to get more money than me because of the time. I said, Donnell, I help you to get where you are like Frank helped me to get where I am. I said, you pass the baton and help somebody else. I don't care what color it is, help somebody else, but live a good lifestyle. So Donnell will be coming over for this event. Most of the guys from the National Football Association will be attending this event because they want to support the museum. So Jackie set the standard for all of us to come behind. And his lifespan was short. See, what my mortality is, probably I would live to 88. He lived at 53. Health conditions. I've been trained to eat the right food because of my sports. Obesity has taken over the country. So we don't want that to happen to anyone, whether he's an athlete or non-athlete. And the museum can have the literature here to support that. Mm-hmm. Now, at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, we saved 25 lives 2 years ago, prostate cancer. We were getting guys off the street to come because they didn't have no doctor to get checked. And they come back and they're still alive today because of the testing. Screening for high blood pressure, like Frank said, diabetes, cancer. I was a prostate cancer client a year ago. I'm healed because I kept getting my exams, and Dr. Buzio caught it in time. So, but what if I just kept delaying that? So Jackie didn't have that. Yeah. So Jackie died at an early age. Yeah. See?
And it's important to keep advocating.
Yeah.
Well, yes, about Jackie Robinson, I go over some of the things I said about him. Not only April the 15th is a monumental day, not only for African Americans, but for Caucasians and everyone in the United States of America, because this particular day brings a lot of people together. And this is an educational day, as he was stating, as Dr. Guthrie stated, in the museum. We have all types of different paraphernalia that people can see about Jackie Robinson and other great leaders. But Jackie Robinson Day it stands out just more than any other, not more than any other day, but as high as any other day, because it brings a lot of young people together, athletes, baseball players, football players. Jackie Robinson was not only just a baseball player, he was a full-letter sports person. Played baseball, basketball, football. Football was the nucleus part of his life. And so Jackie Robinson Day is a monumental day for everybody. And I'm just so thankful that, again, as Bob alluded to, Dr. Guthrie had started this so we could tell the young people what they need to do about Jackie Robinson. And we talk about family. Jackie Robinson was a family man, and a lot of times his wife will be excluded. We don't talk about her. Rachel Robinson was a monumental woman. She was a great woman. She was the head of the nurse at Yale nursing school. Not only that, she went to Connecticut, and she led the mental institution. She was in charge of everything in nursing. Wow. Jackie Robinson's wife. And so, we talk about one person, but, somebody said, hey, behind every good man, there's a woman. So she was that way. And Jackie Robinson means a lot to me and a lot to other people. And I just never can get over how he could achieve the thing: 6 All-Stars, 6 World Series, most valuable player, and all of those things, with people throwing rotten tomatoes at him, calling the N-word, and every time he stepped to the bat, he had to step back out because debris was thrown at him and all of that. And that made me say, well, I got to keep going. I have to keep going and pursue my career. And I think in 1972, when I went to the All-Star game batting .400, and Jackie Robinson had passed a year before, that was in the back of my mind. I said, I've got to foster through and navigate to get the best I can be. Now, that's unusual, be batting .400. That was at the All-Star break. I didn't bat it all year, but at that time I was, because I was motivated by Jackie Robinson, Frank Robinson, and all those other baseball players.
If Jackie Robinson was in this room with us right now, what would you say to him?
I would say thank you, thank you, thank you for being a legacy leader.
I would say the same thing. Thank you, and you really, really touched my heart. The time that you was on that bus in the United States Army, this United States of America, and you sit on the front seat, and you wouldn't move. They took you off, and they court-martialed you in the United States Army. And my heart go back to the Tuskegee men that was a experiment they had in Macon County, Alabama. He did not go to the back of the bus, but that helped a lot of us to understand that we have a place in this society. And I would thank him for that. As Bob said, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else either one of you would like to add, either about your careers, about community, about Jackie Robinson Day, anything at all?
I want to keep hope alive that our generation that's coming up will make a major contribution to America. And let past be gone and look at now, how we can correct now. But we still need to know the history in order to be better now. I want to continue my life till I'm called to glory, to be doing the same thing every year. I'm going to be a repetitious guy.
Yeah.
Just like when I talk to my daughters, my grandchildren, same thing every day. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
Turn right and keep straight.
My last thing is that I am so thankful to know that I have been a mentor to Elmo Hill, Robert Johnson, Bobby Kennedy, Willie Gillespie. All of those was great athletes. And if I can take this a moment from what a fan said
Of course.
about our team, in the last words that they said, it really stood out to me. This was a fan, an inspiration, a baseball fan, the inspiration of a player. He said in the mid and late 1960s, there was no baseball in our hometown called the Bowling Green Hunters, Clover, South Carolina. Some 40 years ago, I remember hearing talk about a baseball team in our small town. This was a fan in our small town and the name of the people on the team sound familiar as a young person. I began to investigate to see exactly what it was all about. After investigating and seeing some of the faces and players of the team, I discovered that some of them were my relatives. I began to go to the baseball game. They would play behind Roosevelt High School baseball field. This was a time of excitement and joy for me, as well as my other citizens in the community. And we look forward to each week to go to the game. These games had a big impact on my life, and as well as other fans in this town, especially young people, because there was no activity in the small community in the summer after school, especially for African-American people. Yes, there was a beautiful swimming pool and other recreation things in this town, but it was on the east side of town where there were mostly Caucasian families. And we were not permitted for getting into the pool, for activities. Once again, we'll look forward to going to the baseball games on Saturday and Sundays and enjoy watching the games that the Hornets played. As I look back as a young person, at that time, those games helped me to keep me and people my age from abusing of alcohol and marijuana. And that stood out to me. And other addictive drugs, because we watched and observed the Hornet players, and they conducted themselves in and off the field. Some of them were married and had other young men in this community, Some of the young boys my age watched these Hornet players and became great family men, honorable citizens in their prospective community. That was from a fan. That touched my heart.
Yes, sir.
That is very beautiful. Mm-hmm. Thank you guys both so much. I really appreciate you sharing your stories with me. It's very important to me that we are able to record history, especially of people who lived through it. And you both have lived through history, and your stories are history. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn about it.
And we thank you, and we thank Doc Guthrie and all the others that made this possible.
After hearing from those very influential athletes, I think we can all agree that there is an importance of preserving our history and our community values. For the Wise News Network, I'm Grace Smith.